let me get this straight. Did Marco Rubio, senior US Senator and member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, just hint that maybe the West should start colonizing again? Or are we reacting to language without looking at the board? At Munich, he spoke about 5 centuries of Western expansion. He was speaking about building empires, shaping the world. Now, if we just pause for one moment, right? For Europe and America, expansion built wealth, right? But for Africa and the Caribbean, what did it mean? It meant extraction, enslavement, and borders carved without consent. And that history still shapes trade, debt, and GDP today. Now, if we bring in the numbers, right, the United States operates over 700 military bases globally, according to the Pentagon. China has committed to over $1 trillion to infrastructure through Belt and Road, according to the Council on Foreign Relations, right? And then if we just look at this, right, Africa holds roughly 30% of the world's mineral reserves, including cobalt and lithium, both critical for tech and green energy, according to the UN, right? And that's just some of the critical minerals. So when a senior American foreign policy figure speaks about expansion, even philosophically, the question has to be, expansion into what? Like, honestly, security, supply chains, critical minerals, digital infrastructure? Because let's have it right. Modern colonization isn't about poking flags in the ground. It's contracts, it's debt, it's who controls ports, fiber cables, payment systems, and energy grids. If this is about competition with China, then African leaders need to know that emotion is not a strategy, leverage is. And if I was advising African presidents or governments in any format, right, I would say this clearly. Negotiate smarter, not as 54 separate press conferences, but as one coordinated economic front. Yes, we get it, right? Countries have different needs. Yes, timelines differ. Yes, fragmentation is weakening pricing power. So we need to think about that bit, right? Because when countries negotiate alone, they compete against each other. When blocs negotiate, they set terms. And that doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect unity. What it does mean is that coordination where leverage exists, critical minerals alliances, right? Energy cooperation shared, digital standards, debt transparency frameworks, mineral access tied to local processing and skills transfer, infrastructure structured with debt sustainability in mind, central banks protecting currency stability so that growth isn't erased by inflation, institutions strong enough that contracts are enforceable and investors, local and foreign, are both protected equally because power respects structure. Now, if we add the layer that most people ignore altogether, right? The diaspora is watching. There are over 140 million people of African descent living outside the continent. Remittances. I know I'm probably always speaking about this, right? But remittances to sub-Saharan Africa exceed $50 billion a year, according to the World Bank, right? That is capital. That is skill. That is a global network. So instead of fearing brain drain, build brain gain, dual citizenship reform, clear tax frameworks, fast-track licensing, diaspora bonds backed by credible governance and real upside, right? Because brain gain only works where capital feels safe. Talent is only going to return where contracts are enforceable. The real question isn't like, did he hint at colonization, to be honest? The real question is, who is structurally ready for a world where every major power is competing? Quietly or not. Anyway, let's talk in the comments. What are your thoughts?
For 5 centuries, before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe. But in 1945, for the first time since the age of Columbus, it was contracting. Europe was in ruins. Half of it lived behind an iron curtain, and the rest looked like it would soon follow. The great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and sickle across vast swaths of the map in the years to come. Against that backdrop, then as now, many came to believe that the West's age of dominance had come to an end, and that our future was destined to be a faint and feeble echo of our past. But together, our predecessors recognized that decline was a choice, and it was a choice they refused to make. This is what we did together once before, and this is what President Trump and the United States want to do again now, together with you. And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline.